Hey, hello. Just decided to do a little live stream. I didn't post anything. I wasn't sure if I was going to do a live stream today, but just decided to do one. Just because there's been a couple things that I wanted to talk about, some changes, some cool things, and some things that are kind of concerning about some of the new substance news. So I wanted to talk about that, kind of share my thoughts, things like that. Really quick, I gotta share some links. But if you guys are just joining, say hello. I'd love to see who's here. Yeah. So yeah, who do we have here today? Let me know in the chat. So we got some people on Twitch. We got some people coming on YouTube. Fantastic. Say hello. Love to see who's here. If you're joining on Facebook, let me know. I always want to make sure that the Facebook connects weird. So yeah. Today's gonna be fun. I'm gonna try to do these every week if I can, because I think it's good to talk about all this stuff. Seems like in the VFX industry things are always changing. So yeah. So we're gonna be talking about the substance news. We can jump in here in just a second, talk about that. Again, if you're new to the stream and all that, I'm Aaron Sorensen. I'm a VFX artist and kind of educator. I like to do a lot of VFX tutorials and stuff. Created a course called the VFX Crash Course. Teach people the visual effects workflow and how to create kind of cool visual effects from beginning to end. So welcome. If you guys have questions in the chat as we go along, feel free to ask. Love to answer those as we go along. So some of the big news that happened today was Algorithmic, yes, the company that created Substance Painter. They are joining Adobe, which is crazy. So yeah, a lot of mixed feelings about this. Because I'm a fan of Substance Painter. It's super cool. So I want to show you guys what it says on their site. So yeah, you can see they've updated their site and they're officially going to be joining Adobe, which is kind of interesting. I've been watching some people, I've been reading comments and stuff on all these groups, and from what I'm seeing from the community, most people are not very happy about this. So I want to kind of talk about like my thoughts, maybe why, everyone's a little nervous about them joining Adobe and why I am as well. And maybe the silver lining, maybe some things about this that could be good. And if you guys have your thoughts, share them in the chat. Really curious. Yeah, but this is kind of big news. So those of you that don't know what this software is, it's essentially a way to be able to paint on 3D objects. And so it's really cool. You import your models and you can paint right on them. They also have procedural materials that can do like worn edges, lots of really cool things, really cool masks. Anyway, they've created a really good software, and it's been really popular, I would say mostly for game development and some 3D art. It's a lot like Mari, which is the Foundry's painter, and that's usually used for film stuff, just because you can do really, really really large textures, like 16K textures in like Mari, whereas Substance, I don't think you can. But it's still a freaking rad texturing. They definitely filled a void where there wasn't, some good software out there. anyway, so it's really cool. And the big news, yeah, they've sold, or it looks like they're joining Adobe. And I'm not personally, so first I'm going to share my thoughts on it. I'm not super excited about this. Kind of disappointed. And I'll tell, and I think it's just because my, all the stuff that Adobe's done, like recently, hasn't been very cool. Not like what I'm seeing. I feel like a lot of these big companies, they get to a point where they just start like Apple kind of did too. They grew and then they just like forgot about what kind of got them started. Like Apple grew because I felt like they had really cool computers that allowed people to, do really cool art stuff. And then they got so big, now they just like focus on like little apps and phones. And it's kind of disappointing. And I feel like Adobe has done the same thing. They like started off like After Effects, Premiere, and they were ahead of the game and they're kicking butt. And now they're like moving into like broader and broader audiences, which is understandable from like a business standpoint, because yeah, you do want to reach broader audiences. But I feel like they always forget the core, and they kind of forgot about a lot of like artists that they started with. Like my biggest gripes, and I'll tell you about this a bit later, but is After Effects. Like if we've seen the way After Effects has grown, it like did this, it was doing super good, and then it just like plateaued. It just completely stopped. It was almost like every year they had a bunch of new stuff coming out, and then it just stopped. And like if you go read the comments on like Adobe's like newest release of After Effects, people are just like, no multi-threading, like what's going on? Like they haven't fixed like anything for like compositors. It's just like there's so many things they could be adding and improving, and just playback even, and it's just not happening. And so the fear, and the reason why I'm getting all of that, talking about all of that, is because the fear that a lot of artists have is that now that Substance is with Adobe, it's going to do the same thing. Like they're going to take, hopefully, I hope they don't, they take Substance and then it just is like a couple of cool things and then it just stops and it doesn't keep growing. And that's the fear that I think a lot of us have, seeing that Substance is joining Adobe. So it is something that, it's like for Substance, it's probably a huge win. They probably are like, yes, they, you have to have like an exit strategy. And for them, it's like, this is great. But for a lot of the artists, they're kind of sad because Substance was doing a good job at like updating and keeping this thing going. And now I fear that it could plateau. So that's just a fear of mine. And it's only based off of past things. You saw it with Fuse. They had Fuse. I don't know if you guys know Adobe Fuse, but Adobe Fuse is the thing where you create these characters. It's, I like it, and it was a way to create characters, and they also were bought. But then it's just like, oh, we have this software, and then it just stops getting updated. It's like, oh, that's cool, and then it just ends. They don't keep innovating. And so the fear is that is going to happen with Substance. So there's a lot of fear, I think, around this today. When people saw this, they're like, no! Like, I don't think I saw anyone that was super excited about this, which is sad. Okay, so let's talk, I guess, about like the possibilities of this being a good thing. Okay, so possibilities of it being a good thing. Well, now Substance has access to, all the Adobe stuff. So it's like, will it have a lot more tools that are integrated from like Photoshop? Will it integrate a lot of the things that we love from Photoshop in? I don't know, because even if you look at Substance, it has a lot of similar stuff, and you can tell they definitely pulled inspiration from it. And so it's like, could this be a really good thing? I don't know. Hopefully with more money, they can like make this thing like even better, and maybe textures can be like 16K, just like Mari, and it won't just be used for games. It can be used for films, or maybe they'll improve like projections in it, so you can do like fully projection, projected environments even. I think that would be kind of a cool thing that they would add. Just a bunch of things they could do that, fingers crossed. Like these are things that I'm like, okay, with more money and them being with Adobe, hopefully they can add some cool things to that. So another thing is everyone's like, oh crap, it's going to go to subscription. And I think they say in here that nothing's going to change for now. It was somewhere in this article where it's like, yeah, nothing's going to change yet. Like, not for now. So if you've bought it, you're good. But could it change? Yes. And that's kind of a creepy and sad thing. So hopefully that doesn't that doesn't happen, you know. Hopefully, well, it's going to happen. We all know it is. That they're going to throw it in part of their subscription, and you won't be able to just pay for it and have it. And I think Substance was super cheap at first. I use Substance Painter. So, I mean, I don't have Designer, so maybe that would be nice because I have an Adobe subscription, so maybe I would get Designer as well as a part of it. Yeah, Painter, this tool's been super rad. So those of you that don't know anything about Painter, I would suggest go check it out and maybe buy it before it's too late, before they switch it, and see how long you can hold on to your fully paid license, because I'm wondering if things are going to change. I want to see how much it is. I can't remember. Indie license. Oh, it looks like they already have like a monthly plan subscription. Yeah. Okay. Looks like it is on subscription. The one I have is not. Interesting. So yeah, Substance being bought by Adobe is an interesting thing, and we'll see what happens. So Ricky in Twitch says he thinks that monthly base could be a good thing too. I agree. Yeah, it could be. It could be a really nice thing. I'm just really curious how it's all going to come together. Yeah, let me know what you guys think of Substance or Algorithmic being bought by Adobe. I'm really curious what you guys all think. I know a lot of you guys work in the industry, and so it'd just be fun to hear. So, kind of interesting news today, and I'm really curious to see how everything shakes out. It'll be interesting, guys. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on that. This is actually interesting. It could be an opportunity for companies like Quixel, which I like Quixel a lot, but Quixel's different than Substance Painter and stuff. Quixel's like more photo scan stuff that you can throw in, which is rad, but who knows, maybe they'll start doing more painting as well. So yeah, that's my thoughts on all the stuff happening with them. Hopefully it changes for the better. Hopefully it does become a good thing for all of us. But there's definitely, if you go look on any of the communities, there's a lot of fear that it's gonna get ruined. So share your thoughts in the chat. So yeah, we were talking about like After Effects, and I want to kind of go back to my thoughts on that, because I've vented a little bit about After Effects and why I'm fearful for this is because the fears that have happened with After Effects. So for me, I've always been, I used After Effects for years and years. It's what I started on, and it grew fast and then it plateaued. With that, I started hitting this wall in compositing that I felt like I could not get. There were certain things I couldn't do, and I was very reluctant to move over into a node-based compositor because I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, that's beyond my knowledge. And when I did, and I started understanding why it was, why they use nodes in, Hollywood and most major films, they use Nuke or Fusion. Fusion rarely, but Nuke like 90% of the time, is because nodes are so much better for compositing. So one example, and one thing I wanted to talk about, is the difference between After Effects and Nuke and layer base. I talk about this a lot in my course, but I want to kind of maybe talk about it today during this live stream. So one biggest thing is camera mapping. So to understand camera mapping, I was going to show you guys some projection stuff so that you guys can understand what projections are and camera mapping. So essentially, maybe this image will, let's see if I can find a full image of this. Okay, I mean, it's really low res, but I want to explain a little bit. So essentially, wherever your camera perspective is, you're able to project, just like a projector, an image onto a 3D asset. So they use this all the time. Like if you go look at almost any VFX breakdown, you're going to see this technique being used because you can take real photos, matte paintings that you create in Photoshop, and project them onto 3D geometry, and it just looks more photorealistic. A lot of times they use it for things that are really far away in the distance because it just looks nice. So yeah, so After Effects is one thing that I wish they always had, and unfortunately they have this like terrible workaround, and even some of the best artists have to like come with these like workarounds to make it work decently. And if After Effects, with the one thing if they updated, would be adding 3D, a better 3D workflow, it would be a huge game changer. I wish they would add nodes as well, but you can't have it all. I just wish they would add some 3D stuff. So this is Ren's tutorial. He's super cool, really nice dude. And I would say his is one of the best tutorials for camera mapping in After Effects. But I kind of want to show you guys the problem with After Effects. So already it's like moving 3D stuff in here is not the easiest in After Effects. So the first thing is the 3D pipeline's not very good. And then the other thing is you can't manipulate your geometry, so you have just planes to work with, which is kind of sad. So he's using this grid here, and then what he ends up doing is lining it up, and he has a camera tracked, so he does a camera track. And then here's the funny thing about After Effects is you have to create a light. So you're literally, this is the craziest thing, you're literally creating a projector. So what he's doing is he's connecting this light to a camera, and then he puts it up right by the front of the lens of the camera. And from that perspective, he's going to shine a light onto the 3D cards, but he's not done yet. Because then he has to take the image he wants to project in front of that light and have it be like translucent, so it goes onto the card. So this is why After Effects and Adobe needs to start updating their software, because this is such a like workaround. They don't have just like a camera projector. And so he's setting that all up, and it takes quite a bit of time. He's trying to line it all up, and he's doing a good job because Ren's a boss. And he gets, I think, one of the best results I've ever seen for camera projections in After Effects. Like the Corridor Digital guys are really, man, they do some things with After Effects that I don't even think most people know you could do. Like they're very, very talented at doing stuff in here. But that's such a like hard workaround, and there's definitely better ways to do this. So I wanted to open up Nuke today and show you guys the power of nodes. So we're going to do that, and don't be scared. It's going to be easy, and maybe you guys will learn a little something, and maybe this will get you guys excited about using nodes. I'm going to hide my face. I know you guys like to see my face, but I'm going to hide it so that you guys can pay attention to Nuke. All right, so this is just a little matte painting I did for the course, but I want to show you guys how to do some projections with just something simple like this. So the first thing is you can bring in Photoshop files into Nuke, and to break up the layers, what you'll use is called a shuffle. And the shuffle can look at all the layers inside. Now this is just a PNG, so it doesn't really have anything in it. But if I was to import, I'll just bring this one in here. Okay. So yes, here's that concept art. Oh, this one's a little bit different. If you connect a shuffle, so this is the layer. just like in After Effects, and the shuffle is like an effect, if you will. And the shuffle pops up over here, where you can see the properties of each of your effects. And then you can see these are each of those layers represented here. So I'm not going to shuffle those out because I already exported each of these layers individually. And here is kind of like the raw without those like light effects. This is each of those layers combined. So I started with, and the way Nuke works, if you're new to Nuke, is your B pipe goes down, like, and that's like the background. So an A is always on top of B. So I always like put the A on the left side, and your masks, so if you have any masks, are on the right. So if I press 1, you're looking at this view. And there we go. So there's our first layer, and then I basically merged or used like a channel overlay. This next layer. So here's this layer. See, it has like an alpha channel. And this is a pre-molt, so when you bring alphas in, they'll look kind of janky, and so you want to pre-multiply them so they are transparent like that. And you can see all my weird masking in Photoshop, so you'll have to ignore that. And then you merge things over. So merging things over is where you do like you would in After Effects. If I double click on the merge, it's on over, but they have multiply, minus, mask, screen, all of those composite modes that you'd see in After Effects. So I just started merging each of these layers in here like that. And I just want to show you guys, so if you go down, you'll see that there they all are. And each of these are those pieces. So I want to recreate this, but now I want to create this in 3D space. And that's what I want to show you today in Nuke, and why 3D, using nodes and 3D compositing is so much more powerful and can open up the doors to a lot of things. So let's create a 3D scene. And let me just show you how awesome Nuke is to doing 3D. So what you need to do 3D is you need what's called a scene node. So a scene node is essentially a 3D area, and it looks a little bit differently. They're like circly and they're red. And you need a camera, so we're just going to throw a camera in here. And then you want to put these arrows into the scene so that they're kind of connected. And then what you need is like 3D cards. So I'm pressing tab, and I'm searching, but there's different ways to get to these little nodes, and you can go right here and we can do geometry and do like a card. So there we go. Now we have a card right there, and we have this camera. I'm going to hide the 3D grid so you can kind of see. But already the nice thing about Nuke is I can use the controls just like I use in Maya or Houdini, holding Alt and moving around, and I can move cards around just super quick. Whereas in After Effects, you have to press C and toggle through each of the movements. This just feels so much more natural. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start projecting. And I'm going to show you the basics of doing a projection. So you have one camera and you have a card. And if I plug my image directly into, let's just say, this background, you'll see that the image shows up. But that's actually not projecting. That's just pretty simple, just putting the image on the card. So that'd be good if you're doing like smoke effects or whatever. You'd want to plug it in that way. So to do a camera project, what you need to do is they have this nice project 3D. So this is a really handy node. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to say, hey, card, look at the projection camera. And then there's two little nodes it's going to want to feed in here. You have a camera and you have the image. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, here's the image. And then we're going to give it the camera. See, and you can see it snapped. But we actually need two cameras. We need one that's our animated camera, and we need one that is a projector. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to animate this camera, because right now it's not moving. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to just double click on the camera right here, and I'm going to add a keyframe just on the translation. And then we'll go to the very end, and maybe we'll just push the camera in like that. So now you have an animated camera like so. Then what we want to do is we actually want to copy and paste this camera, but we want to remove, or you could do I think a frame hold. So what this is going to do, it's going to hold the frame. So now if I toggle forward, what we should see, there we go, is two cameras. And I'm maybe going to color the second camera just so you guys can see it a little bit better. Oh, did not do the wrong color. There we go. Okay. So the red camera is our projection, and I'm going to name that the proj cam. So the red camera is the projection camera, and it shouldn't move because it's holding a frame, and this frame holds on frame 0. And we fed that into our projection camera. So if I move this proj camera, you'll see that it's sliding, our image is moving because it's connected, which is super handy. But now we need to start lining up these little cards we have to match our environment. So the first thing I'm going to do is, because I have this scene broken up into different pieces, I'm going to actually not use this image, but I'm going to use our background image. And this one's going to be really nice to create a ground and a horizon. So let's do that. So the nice thing is we have this card, and you can rotate it like this, like towards the ground. And let's make this really big. So now you can start to see what's happening. So from this perspective, it's looking really jank. It's not looking very good, but we're going to fix all that. So let's just say there's our projection on the ground. And maybe we've gone a little too big. Let's go 5. Good. So here's the cool thing is now what I can do is I can copy this card and plug it in right there. And I can put that rotation back. So, but they're both plugged into this one projector. So now both of these cards are being, let's see if I rotate this one. There we go. Now I'm going to find where that horizon meets the ground. Let's see. Let's go. You can kind of see where it's cutting off. We could go like around there. That'd be pretty good. So from this perspective, it looks weird, but that's okay. And the other fun thing we can do is you can start manipulating this whole square. Like, this is the fun thing with Nuke, is if you have bumps in the ground, you're not just going to be working with these like 2D planes. You can work with other things as well. And let me show you what the camera perspective looks like. So already, you know, we're getting parallax. And the way you'd want to view this is with a scanline render. So let me just show you what that would look like. If you press tab, this brings us back into the normal view. We also need to make sure that our project is set up. I'm going to put it in 1920 by 1080. So this is the rendered out view, and we're just going to hit play for a second. And you can see now we have a projection done pretty easily. This is super simple, but let's take it one more step further. You know, this is just one layer so far. So I'm going to press tab again and get back into our 3D view. And like I said, we can take this plane and we can start, let me subdivide this a little bit. Let's just go, I'm gonna do a pretty high subdivision right there. And technically I could like squish this thing so we don't have as much right there. But here's the cool thing is they have these deforms, and this is kind of stuff that I wish After Effects had. So you can set up these deforms, and right now they're just right here on the edges. But it's really handy. Yeah, you could do, let's see, cubic. So now it's in there, and let's just do like 6, 6, like that. New shape, yes. So there we go. Now this thing's like subdivided quite a bit. But the cool thing is, now we can start, if we have like hills and things like that, you know, maybe we know that this actually raises up on this side a little bit, like there's a hill. Let's try to just like bring that projection up a little bit. And there we go. We can match it like this. And we'll have to adjust some other things as well, like the sky being clipped a little bit. I'm going to see if I can. But this is just going to give us a lot more detail and more parallax that will look a little bit nicer. So that's pretty cool that we can do that. So yeah, we're able to raise up this hill. See if I can go to my camera view like this. So now you can start to see how this thing's going to come together. And that's a really fast move. It starts smearing, and you know that's things that you'd have to fix, like do multiple projections over that. So let's grab another element, and I'm actually going to, I think, raise up some of these foreground areas. Go back into the default view. I'm going to raise this up quite a bit, so it looks like our camera's getting closer to the ground here. Just going to bring this all the way up towards camera. Now let's go back and take a look. Yeah, so now you're getting like, I mean, there's going to be smearing, and you'd fix a lot of this. You do reprojections, you'd project over the smearing, let's do some patch projections. But this idea of being able to manipulate your geometry is pretty sweet. So now we can add a lot more stuff in here as well. So what we could do is we can take some of these other layers that we have, and I'm going to create a new card. And this close out all that. So we're going to do a card. Same way we did before. And this time I'm going to move this one further back, because this is going to be one of those mountains that we had back there. And I'm just going to plug this straight in. So now this is this little mountain right there, which is kind of cool. Yeah, Peter, this is pretty sweet that you can do these. Peter's saying it's cool that you could do this in Nuke. Didn't know this trick. I've always imported an image into C4D to make the mesh, then export to Nuke. Yeah, it's really nice. You can do these. You can mess with the meshes here in Nuke, which is super handy. Again, I'm going to copy. Actually, I may be able to. Yeah, we're just going to copy this projection node. I'm going to go into the projection, into the camera, because we're going to use this camera projector for a lot of things. And there we go. So now I have this little thing right here. And I'm going to scale this down. And we won't need to really mess with this very much. And if you scale too much, it will clip it. So you just got to be careful of that. So there we go. And so we have our first little mountain in there. And we'd want to look at the camera view. And we maybe want to push that one back because that's kind of sitting weird. Because you'll get some weird parallaxing if things aren't moving correct. So this one actually is supposed to be way back here, probably even close to just the horizon. But now let's do another. Let's throw another node in here. I'm I'm going to unplug all this and just kind of organize this a little bit better. That's the other thing is when you're working in Nuke, you really got to try to be organized because it can get out of hand quickly. So I'm just going to move these layers over here. And you can create these cool little, if you hold control, you can create these little arms to organize it. All right, so I'm going to take this other little mountain, create a new card, and plug this one in. And we're going to do another projector. And I think maybe, no, we have to get a new projector. Yep. And back into that same camera, and then into the image. And you'll see that this card is not big enough because it's supposed to be that one. So we got to figure out where this is in 3D space. It's scaling because it's keeping its size, but where it is in 3D space is important because that's how much parallax you'll have. And the slower something moves, typically it feels much bigger. So you kind of have to figure out about, how big this thing's supposed to be. So let's go into here, and that's looking fine. It looks a little plain right now. The other thing we could do is I'm going to maybe reanimate the very last frame. So I'm going to hit set a keyframe here. And the very last frame, I'm going to actually move this camera a little bit. And you can do, I think, a split view. What is it? Yes, split view. One can be here. I'm going to just rotate this so I can see what this is going to do. I could create two viewers, but I'm just going to split view it. This camera, the very last frame, I want it to actually look up and maybe even to the left a little bit towards that thingy. Okay. All right, so let's go back and look at just, I just kind of reanimated that a little bit. That's something really simple. I wasn't going crazy. Okay, so let's go back into this card. And I want to look at the default view. And let's take a look at this mountain. And just like we did before, we could subdivide this whole thing. So we have a little bit more detail, and I'm going to extrude some of this thing forward a little bit more. So let's add that bicubic distortion, and base of mountains usually are out a little bit. So I'm going to just like bulge it forward like that. Yeah. See, now we're able to just bend this thing out like that. And all that's going to do is just give it just a little bit more realism, because mountains, they're not flat. Like the base of the mountain is going to be closer to us than the top. So you're going to get just little bits of parallax in there. And if I wanted, I could even pull the sides back. All right, let's take a look at that. It may be so far away that you can't tell that much. Yeah, it may be just super far away. I could exaggerate it even more if I wanted, just for your guys' viewing sake. Oops, went off the center. Okay, again, I'm just doing this really rough for you guys, mostly to demonstrate the concept. Yeah, it does look a little bit better. I mean, you may not be able to tell on the stream, but from my here, it definitely feels like the front area is bigger. It does feel a little bit more 3D rather than a flat card. So, all right, let's keep going. Let's keep adding in some of these cliffs. So I'm just gonna create another new card. Let's put this here. I may just move this all the way up here so it's out of the way. Again, I'm not being super organized right now. Hopefully you guys would make your nodes look nice and clean. Okay, so let's grab another card. We'll plug this into our scene as well. And that same projector going into that same camera, that first frame. And I will show you, a bit later. You could project on other frames as well. I also wanted to see something with this, the pre-molt. Yeah, it's still doing that. Hey, Matthew Butler, how's it going? So yeah, we're gonna take another layer, copy, paste, throw that in there. Oh yeah, in your normal view, a lot of these little issues with the alpha go away because it's rendered out. So let's take a look at this layer. Oh, this is the wires. These ones are hard to see. It's these little 3D wires. Yeah. So that one's not very interesting. So I'm going to actually just copy all of this and paste again. And there's another, that's what the card looks like without the texture. Matt Butler says, so cool. Me watch movies lots. Thanks, Matt. Oh, gosh. All right. That's, oh, it looks like we had a duplicate. Okay, there we go. Here's a new mountain. This one is supposed to be in front of those wires. Those wires are supposed to look like they're coming off of that, behind this thing. So here's what we're going to do. This will be kind of an interesting thing. And those wires, originally the way I think I painted them is they're like at an angle. So the cool thing is, let me turn all that off. The cool thing is we're going to take that wire layer, and by holding control you can rotate. So if I rotate, now it's still being projected, but now it's being projected. So now you're going to get some cool parallaxing angle like that. So it'll feel a lot more real. Let's go to the camera view. And maybe we'll go to the, let me go to the render view so you guys can see this a little bit better. And I'm going to go down to the half resolution so it should play back a little bit quicker. So already this is just, this is me doing this pretty quick. And our sky's getting cut off, and we're getting smearing, and that's just something, we'd have to fix. But already this is starting to look a lot nicer. I may pull some of these polygons down here forward so this front rock feels a little more 3D, and fix our sky up. So we can do that. Press tab to go back into 3D land here in Nuke. And yeah, let's fix this sky. So there's some things we can do in here to make this work. Right now we're using one image, one projection on both the card and that, but I'm actually going to split this up so that I can do a couple of things with it. So that's our ground, and maybe we'd want to name all this so we know, but for now I'm just going to do the ground so I know which one's ground and which one's sky. Sky. Let me close this down. All right, so I'm just going to copy this projection, the one I did for the sky, and we're using one image, that same image, but it's going into different projections. Now, the cool thing is, in between this project and that image, we can do things like add a transform. So transform, what we can do with this guy is we can start scaling this thing up. So it got clipped off, so I'm going to manipulate this thing a little bit in order to get what we want. And the other thing I was thinking about doing is maybe even using I think we can use a sphere instead. And we're going to scale this sphere up so we're inside of it. And let me plug that into our scene. And now let me unplug that sky. So now you can see we have a sky, but I'm going to move the sphere a little bit closer. Like that. And the reason why I'm doing a sphere is so it'll kind of bend our sky a little bit more. And if you make your sphere, smaller, it's going to make the parallax effect of your sky a little bit more apparent. So yeah, we could, there we go, right there. So let's go take a look at, let me just hit tab actually and go into here. See, I did manipulate the sky a little bit more. It's still getting cut off. So I could stretch it using that transform. And maybe it went out a little too wide. So the fun thing is I'm able to kind of go back and fix some of this stuff. Just in little ways. We can see it's being clipped. And that's because the reason why it's getting clipped is because our projection camera only can see that, however high. And so what you'd need to do is you'd need to project again by the this top piece to fill that all in. And we may do that or we may not, just depending on time. And it looks like we do need to go a little bit wider though. Okay, so if I play this back a little bit, now our sky shouldn't feel as flat. It should feel like a dome sky. And again, it's getting clipped off because we would have to do a secondary projection, which I think we're going to do it. So yeah, what you do in this scenario is you would, I'm going to take this same card and do another, I think we could do a merge, what is it? Merge material? Yes, I think that's what you do. And you do like an A over B scenario. So I'd copy this projection. And I think what we'd want to do is throw that in there. But the camera, we're going to actually need a second projection at this very end. So I'm going to take this actually, I think we can take, yeah, I'm going to replace this camera with the other one. This shouldn't change it because it's the same camera. But instead of the frame hold being 0, I'm going to do a frame hold on 100. So let's see if that works. Frame hold. We're going to change this to 100 because that's the last frame. And there you go. So it is working, but now what we would have to do is blend. We'd have to blend these two. And I actually would do, let me Shift X will swap these. Now I'm going to Shift X. Oops. So what we would have to do is create a mask right here to blend these two, because obviously that's, you know, that's not going to work. Or you do, let's see if we could throw a transform to just move this thing a little bit to make it work. Just for the demonstration. Yeah, we're definitely going to have to do, oops. We're going to have to do some type of roto. So let's just throw, I may just do a quick roto. Hey Shannon and hey Tintin, how's it going? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a little mask right here over this little part. I'm just going to blend it pretty quick. And what we should see, and so if I press A, that's the alpha. And I think we can do an RGBA. Yes, we can. And we'll just click on this and we're going to feather it. I think we can do a nice feather like that. Okay, so now it should be blending, and let's take a look. Let's go back, oops, into our scene. Oops, let's just go right there. There we go. Okay, so yeah, now you can see we were able to blend those two skies together. So this is before the roto and after the roto. I mean, it's not perfect. I'm just, again, showing this so that you can see that you can blend two projections. So this is the advantage of doing 3D compositing kind of stuff here. Now you do see another issue that we ran into because we projected on this last frame. We now have this huge hole that we'd have to fix. So let's see if I can mess with my roto shape in order to fix some of that. I'm going to delete that one. Yeah, so this is, again, I'm doing this really quick. You can do things like patch projections and stuff, but we're just going to do this really quickly. All right, so overall, we'll see if that worked. It may not. Yeah, so there's different ways we could patch and fix this thing. And we could stretch it. Or at the end of the day, you could just put this, do no projection and just have it go straight onto the sphere and try to fix it this way. And the other way to do it, and I'm going to show you this way because this will take even less time, so we won't do so many projections. So I'm going to delete that just so this can, I'm going to show you guys all these different options. So we're not going to do merge on this one. We're going to actually go straight back to that first projection. But the camera we're going to use is we're going to actually create a new camera. So I'm going to disconnect it from there. We're going to create a camera that is further back than both of these. So it's capturing more of this environment. And I'm just going to copy that original one we had. But this time I'm going to say, no animation on transform. And rotation, I'm going to say no animation. Let's plug this one in here. And watch as I move this camera backwards what happens to our sky. So if I move back, it's scaling it up, but it's also scaling it according to that sphere. So this is like a new projection. And now if we look, if I press tab and we go to like our last frame, you can see now all the way through it's going to work. But we would probably just have to move sky down to the right horizon. But now we have the sky that's fully working, And that's just because we moved the projection camera backwards a little bit off of our animated plane. So yeah, this is just there's our animated camera. There's the two projections. And like I said, we could keep going. We have all these other mountains. Do you guys want to see the rest of this? Let me know. I can keep going. We could just finish off these last ones really quickly if you guys are up for it. I'll see if I can do this really, really fast for you. So we're going to copy, paste. And again, I'm showing you this. The biggest reason why I wanted to show you this today was because I wanted to illustrate the importance of, or the biggest difference between After Effects and Nuke, like 3D compositors, just to show you guys what's possible in 3D land in Nuke. And hopefully this kind of illustrated that for you. Okay, yeah, Shannon's up for me keep going. Okay, I'll keep going then. So you can see right here, this one's kind of floating. That's the other thing, is you want to make sure you have contact with the ground all right there, and you can see where things are intersecting. So I may go back into my ground and let's go back over into our ground. And like I said, we saw this thing kind of not quite intersecting. So I may raise that up until our sky clips. And let me just go right there. There we go. Right before the sky clips. That should be touching the ground now. Yep. So that's setting on the ground. So that way you're not getting some weird holes. I think I did see one with this back one as well. It looked like it was floating. And sometimes that's actually a good way to see if it's sitting in the right place in 3D. But I'm going to just try to cheat this one. Yeah, see there, it needs to be touching around there. And again, maybe I wanted to extrude some of these as well. Yeah, no problem for doing this on Nuke. It's fun to see how Nuke works versus After Effects. That was, again, why I wanted to show you guys how cool this is and how fast. So again, let's take this guy and extrude it. Since this one's closer to the camera, we're going to be able to see a lot more parallax. So again, you click on your card, deform, cubic, and if that's not enough subdivisions, which it may not be, let's just go 8 and 8 and hit new shape. It's going to ask you if you want to update, and you say yes. Now we can get in here, and again, the cool thing is this is all being projected. This is all just projections. And so we're able to have a lot more control over this kind of stuff. Like we can push that back, pull these forward. So now you're getting those kind of rocks in the foreground like that. And this is the nice thing, is this is just all from 3D, or from the 3D geometry and photos bashed together. So you can just take something super simple and make it look really rad. I may put this at all these ones at an angle. I don't know. I'm just having fun right now with this, just to show you guys what's possible. I'm gonna put those at angles, and I think if you hold what is it, controller? No, there's a way to manipulate, bend these kind of differently. Again, the base of this would be further out. Yeah. See, from our perspective, it looks all warped, but yeah, we got to fix that a little bit more. Yeah, there's just things like this you can't do in After Effects, which again is kind of a bummer. Like if they had all this stuff, I think a lot more people would do 3D compositing, and you'd start seeing some pretty amazing composites in After Effects. I mean, already people do amazing stuff with it, but this is definitely like Nuke takes it to a whole new level. So let's take a look at our scene now. So you have this kind of warped. Well, that's super warped. Why is that edge so gross right there? I'm going to pull this thing forward. I just don't think that was doing what I wanted. Okay, that's better. Okay. So now, let's take a look back in our camera. It's always fun to go back and forth. Let's take a look at the rendered out camera. And you can do motion blur, so maybe I'll turn that on as well. Oh, whoops, we gotta make sure you're looking through your scanline render. And again, I'm using, if any of you are wondering, this is the free Nuke. I'm not using, this is the 1080p free Nuke, and you can render these out, which is super cool. You know, if you wanted, you could also, I forgot to mention, you don't just do images. You obviously can do video. So I could have a video of a waterfall and project it over there. Right now it's just a still. Okay, we're going to do one more thing with this. And there's a couple of things I wanted to show you, like with these lines kind of jittering. I think that's either our resolution, but it's still there, or it's the anti-aliasing. And I think, yeah, once you turn that up, so if I'll turn this on none, or I think it's set to like low, or no, I think it's on none. See, those lines are pretty crappy, and then you turn it on like high, it looks much better. I'm multi-sampling, so this is your motion blur. So if I turn that to 5, you're gonna start seeing some motion blur kick on. It's gonna slow things down. You know, that's always the case with motion blur. And I'm going to go back to 1 just so that it doesn't take up too much time. The anti-aliasing also will. So I'm going to turn the anti-aliasing back down to, or maybe let's do low. And I was going to see is they do have a really nice motion blur effect. Let's see if that will just add it on without using 3D motion blur. Yeah, I think it did it. So let's toggle this. If you click on, you can see if I press D on and off, it's working. So cool things to kind of, if you were trying to make this look a little bit more realistic, some things I would do, you know, as like a lens distortion, except for, if anyone knows Nuke really well, I'm having a problem with the lens distortion. I don't know if it's because they changed it. Because now it like asks for ST maps and you have to key things. And I kind of miss the way where you could just like distort it. So if anyone knows how to distort, it would be super helpful, because I cannot for the life of me figure out why this, see if I just start cranking up numbers, it's not distorting. And I want it to do like a classic lens distortion, but we can do that in something else. Yeah, then you'd add like, you know, you could add like some glow effects, have a bleed over if you wanted the whole thing, and then turn the brightness down. I don't know. You could grade it really cool ways. It's nice they have this D button where you can just toggle things on and off. That's something I really like in Nuke as well. Yeah, so you could do... Yeah, I built some atmosphere into these elements already. That was something I did, but I'm just, you know, if you wanted to do this. So sometimes it's better not to, if you wanted to get more organic look. And then if you're trying to get, so if you press A, you can see your, oops. If you press A, you can see your alpha. And you have to make sure it's white if you do things like grain, because I always add grain on things. If you don't have, let me just show you. If you have this on set to your alpha, so this is your alpha channel, if it's set to black or even sometimes gray, if it's not, I mean, that just brings on whatever it is. But if it's set to black, you'll see that no grain will turn on. But if it's set to normal, like fully white, it'll work. Black doesn't work. So I've seen people be like, why isn't grain working? It's because you have to make sure alpha's set up properly. Yeah, so adding grain, this is just a little side thing. Anytime your image, like you're doing like projections or any image composites, if you're not adding grain or even noise, like there's something called a dither that I've used too. Dithering is kind of just adding like digital noise like that. But if you don't add this stuff in there, it feels dead. It doesn't feel like it's a real thing. And that's because when you film stuff with cameras or anything, there's always going to be, you'll see just a little bit of noise moving and stuff. And adding those like little details are the things that are going to make your composites look way more real. When it's just still and dead, it feels off. It just doesn't feel right. So adding motion blur, adding grain is going to give it that photorealism that you're looking for. Again, that's just like a little quick tip if you're looking to make things look a little bit more photorealistic. And yeah, understanding how cameras work, I think that's something really important as well. Because if you don't understand like how, you know, light works with a camera, like if you look at old film cameras, highlights did bloom a lot. Digital cameras are super sharp. So yeah, I mean, I exaggerated the grain just to show you guys. I would hope you wouldn't make your grain this grainy. But it's just to demonstrate the idea that, yeah, adding grain adds a little bit more life to your composites, motion blur, depth of field, those kind of things. Yes, there is other little detail-y things. Lens distortion. And that's what I was saying, if anyone knows how to like get the lens distortion to work properly in here. Because every lens, here, actually, I'm going to show you guys something. Let me... Okay. So I have all these lenses here. Lenses are spherical, and so for the most part, if you have a super telephoto lens, it's going to have... Even then, it will have some lens distortion. So I have all these different, like this is a 50 millimeter, so it's going to be more compressed. And then this is like an old Canon FD 24. So the wider the lens, it's going to distort. So any like sharp lines that you have when you're on a wide angle, it's going to bend them. So like in CG land, when we render out stuff, everything is just, there's no lens distortion. It's just like perfect. All lines are like crisp. So it's good to add if you're trying to look for, you know, create like more photorealistic. Understand, I would say, suggest to all of you, go out and start taking photos. Like go get some lenses, get some old lenses, new lenses, practice, and then see how your lenses react to light, what they do to your image, and then you try to replicate that in 3D land. Be like, oh wow, yeah, when I shot the sun, it like I got these crazy weird rings, you know, like lens flares, and I got you know, it's just some weird distortion that happened, and then replicate that. Or oh, look at the grain, like zoom in onto their footage, look at grain and see how it reacts. Because, you know, these lenses, as clean as they are, there's going to be little artifacts, smudges, things like that. Different focal lengths do different things. This is a really cool lens. This is like an old FD 85 Canon lens. That's a really fun one. And oops, yeah, so when you're studying things like this, like just this is a really simple, you know, shot. Like we just did a projection and did add some grain, but adding grain and noise does help it feel more real. Again, we didn't spend very long on this projection. We were doing this really quick, and the parallax is too much, and I understand that the animation side of things aren't perfect, but it's good to understand how lenses work and cameras work if you're trying to get things photorealistic. Yeah. So Midnight on Twitch is wondering, have you ever used the Zeiss CPT or CP3 lenses? I've never used CP3s. I've used the CP2s, which I really like. I've shot a music video on the CP2s, and I like them. And I like Cook lenses are really nice. And of course, anamorphic lenses. I wish I could show you. I have this little anamorphic lens. And actually, I was going to show you guys, and I talk about this in some of my lessons, but anamorphic lenses, the reason I think those are a really good way to test your compositing skills is compositing anamorphic stuff. Actually, I can show you. Yeah, here's some images. Let's take some. So an anamorphic lens is great. So this is a normal spherical lens. You know, the ones I was showing you. These are all spherical lenses. I'm gonna take off the back. You can't see through that. And the normal lenses like what I have are spherical, and it's like this. Anamorphic lenses are like this. So they're oval shaped, and you have to have a certain some displays on cameras like the Red and stuff, higher end cameras will have an anamorphic D squeeze. So it's actually recording your image all squished, and it stretches it out. And when you stretch out your image, it's gonna do some weird things. So there's a lot of distortion in anamorphic lenses, and that's why you get those bokeh. So if you're looking at this image that are oval, see how these ones are like circular? Your bokeh will look oval. And there's different types of lenses, anamorphic lenses. There's like square, like these Panavisions look like they're square. And if you're watching a movie and you're like looking at the bokeh, you can usually kind of tell which anamorphic they use, or if they use spherical lenses. But that's how you get, of course, everyone's favorite lens flares. Let's find a good example. Yeah, just like these kind of lens flares. That's fake ones, but that looks like it could be a real one. But it's because it's stretching those flares out across your scene, and we all love that look. So yeah, there's also that image isn't correct, but yeah. So there's different types of lenses that affect things differently. So if you can composite anamorphic stuff, you're in a good place. Also, I wanted to just show you guys. There's also kind of a way you do when you add grain and all that stuff. So grain should be one of the last things, because you have to also think of how your camera works. So the grain's like the last thing that should go on your footage. I wouldn't want to put my grain before motion blur, because your grain doesn't really take on motion blur. It's just the data that's being recorded, or if it's film, it's just the grain on the camera. So you have to think of order of operations for things like that as well. So this grain's like the last thing that I have down here. I was going to show you, you can do this really cool Zeta focus filter, and I think I want to put that before motion blur. I'm just going to look at this really quick to show you guys. Yeah, so the cool thing is we did this in 3D, so it does take on these 3D attributes, so it's blurring our foreground elements. And if I crank this up, so right now you can see these are spherical like that, but an anamorphic lens would squeeze it like this. So that's how someone would be like, oh, you shot on an anamorphic now. So if you guys are in compositing, you're trying to match, you can change the aspect ratio if you know exactly what kind of squeeze your lens is. So yeah, we could turn that on, and then you could have your motion blur. Actually, I think I'm trying to think the order for motion blur versus that. So yeah, let's just close these down and take a preview of that. Yeah, so let's just preview this thing and see. So this is a projection, all just images. It would be cool to get some stock waterfall, replace that, and do some cool stuff right there. And the camera right now is moving way too fast in 3D space. I would never, a camera in real life wouldn't do something like that, especially that telephoto, or you'd have to stretch out our environment a ton. So I actually even may go back into 3D, just change our animation a little bit. Let's look. Let's go to our main camera. And you can see how far this thing moved. Okay, let's try maybe something more like that. So now if this camera is moving, it should feel a little bit better. And we're going to wrap this up in just a bit. But hopefully you guys learned a couple things, you know, about compositing and Nuke. You know, we made this. How long have we been going? We've been going for like an hour. I mean, you guys would have to create all these assets, but you know, we did this pretty quick. Again, I would add in lens distortion. That would be the other thing. Yeah, just dirtying up your image. I feel like that's the thing, is sometimes CG is so clean, and if you're just trying to match real life. Hello from Tahiti. Cool. How's it going, Tavia? What's up? I think I said your name right. So yeah, this is just a super quick projection that we just created. The ground right there is clipping because I had this thing rotate over. Yeah, so we you know, we did this pretty quick. Kind of a fun little thing. I may have to fix the rotation of our camera. And I'm just going to rotate it. Oops. Just going to rotate this thing down. Come on now. Go to the last frame and see if I fix that. There we go. So that one's cut off, but you know, even just doing a simple move like this, you know, turned out pretty cool. And the cool thing is too, we could even animate the focus. Let's just do that for fun. So let's have our focus start here, because why not? And we're gonna go set keyframe, and then let's go maybe like we'll actually go like 30 frames in, and we'll switch it. So then we'll say, oh, change focus to way out. Oh, don't crash. Oh no, it crashed. Don't worry, Nuke has a really good autosave. Let me reboot Nuke. That's the other thing. I didn't save once, and we'll see. It usually saves the project. You say yes, open this untitled project, and it says, hey, non-commercial, and I go okay. So look at that. I didn't even save this project, and it was able to recover it. Okay, let's just save this. I'm just gonna say right here. Okay. So yeah, we were doing a focus, little focus pull. So let me go out here. I'll set a keyframe right there, and let's go to the first frame, and we're gonna move the focal point right here. And oh guys, I want to keep working on this because I wanted to show you some other cool things, like about throwing smoke in here, you know, in the environment, things like that. So we were able to create a 3D environment, all projected from images, and able to do motion blur, depth of field, so I can do this like nice rack focus through our environment pretty quickly. And after this, we're going to just wrap this up because I got to get going. Let's take a look and see how this is. Cool. Once it hits a good point, I'm going to make this thing loop. Okay. Here you go. Yep. So anyway, guys, that's kind of what I wanted to show you today. Difference between Nuke and After Effects. If you guys have any questions, shoot me emails. Let me know if you guys like today's topic, talking about After Effects and Nuke stuff. I can do a lot more of this, show you the power of Nuke, maybe even render out something and bring it into Nuke, do multi-part EXRs. But again, this is all just projections, images, cars being manipulated, and we're able to create some really cool looking stuff really, really quick. So, yeah, just want to say thanks, guys, for hanging out today, and we'll see you probably next week when I do another stream. So if you guys want to be regulars, we'll see you next Wednesday around the same time. All right, we'll see you guys later.